gonna pop a cork. Oh yeah.
I've already done that because, I have a tendency to get into it.
This is like your running motto. While I'm pouring whiskey, you're deep into it already.
I like it that way.
This brand is no surprise, probably for most people at this point. These guys hail from New Jersey, which is an interesting place for American whiskey to hail from. We've covered them at nauseum on Weekly Whiskey, and they have a brand new product here that I'm looking forward to trying. This is, of course, Penelope Bourbon, founded by Michael Palladini and Daniel Palisi of New Jersey. This is called the Architect, though, and it's a little bit different. What's it got going on, John?
So they create the Architect as the project, and each new batch is actually labeled as a build. So this is the third build. So we are drinking Penelope Architect, build number 3. It is a non-age dated bourbon, meaning we don't know how old it is. I think we can assume that it is going to be somewhere in the 5-year range, knowing what their blends have been lately. It is coming in at 104 proof with an SRP of $60, and it is a straight bourbon finished with French oak staves. So anybody who has experienced Maker's Mark, Private Select, or 46, or anything along those lines, you're kind of talking about something of the same style of finishing, where it's not necessarily finishing in a different cask, but using staves to get that extra oak influence on it. And the way that they describe this is a blueprint for the future of precision blending. So they're using the oak scan process here, which is, sort of a way of breaking down what flavors and congeners and whatnot are in the oak itself and how it's going to influence the whiskey. And then they're using that to create each build, and they're making their batches of this. And as the whiskey inside of the blend ages a little bit, you get a little bit of an evolution as the product goes on. So it's a recognizable but unique bottling for each different build.
It's been fun to see Penelope kind of developing. At first, they just had their regular bourbon. It was like an 80 proof, like $30 mixing bourbon. Then they took it up into the barrel strength category, and they've been doing batches there. Like they're up to batch 12, I want to say now. So
Yes.
it's fun to see them developing their product lines, not even, going deeper for each line, but now they're going wider. And presumably, since this is build number 3, there will be plenty of builds to come after this. But I've been giving it a sniff. This is really, it's got quite a bit of French oak to it. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good character to it. It does have that spicy French oak right up front. You get that right off. It mixes with a little bit of what I get like this, sort of a strawberry cherry jam with like almost like a maple note to it that moves right back through into a nice, rich, spicy oak as it kind of progresses over the palate.
I'm with you. This for me, it is really woody in a way that's kind of nice. This isn't big tannins. This is spicy. It's fruit forward. I've noted my review's already up on whiskeyreaders.com, so it's kind of a plot twist for you. But I was a big fan of this release. I thought it brought something really unique to the Penelope family. I liked how fruity it was on the nose. It gets big, bold, and spicy on the palate, and it does have a pretty satisfyingly long finish, but you're going to notice that French oak for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's in a great way too, because this isn't a super old product, but it has, I think, a really good balance with that French oak spice, where it doesn't come through as there's another like greener notes, that there's no youth or grain or anything like that. Like it's just very well balanced with the oak and the product itself. So overall, I think actually it was pretty well done, and I really like the proof point, to be honest with you. I was unsure how that was going to read, whereas most of the stuff I think all of the stuff I've tried of theirs has been in the 109 to 117 proof area. Mm-hmm. And usually just a little bit more punchy with that cask strength. And I think this really kind of scratches the itch pretty nice.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was specifically going to back you into the corner and ask about the proof, right? Like, this is lower proof for Penelope, which sounds funny because their first release was an 80 proof offering. So technically they started as low as you can physically go, and then they quickly realized that whiskey fans are, they want that proof bump up. But as someone who would be perfectly happy drinking nearly almost any bourbon, I think at 50% or 55% these days, this surprisingly, it falls in my butter zone, and I really like it. It's still got a lot of tannin to it. It's still got plenty of body and present spice and everything nice and enjoyable. And I wasn't sure, since you tend to like them bigger and bolder and brasher and meaner and oakier, whether you were going to balk at this price, this proof point, or if this was going to hit it for you.
Yeah, I tend to like my whiskey to be a little bit like the Grinch in character. very mean, and whatever the other thing you said was brash and stuff like that. Other words that you said are also things that are true. But no, I think 104 is right on the money with this. It's a really good proof point. It's more complex than I would have guessed for what is probably a 4 or 5 year product, and that's great. SRP is $60. Price is good. Overall, I think this is as close to a home run as you can hope for with a fairly new product from them.
Yeah, and this is kind of a big risk. Like French oak is big and spicy, and to kind of feature it in this way I won't say unprecedented, right? Like this is definitely not the first brand that's working with French oak, but I, for one, did not expect of all the directions to see Penelope go to see a brand new line extension featuring just French oak, knowing what I have in their inventory. And I think that their oak scan process, now they have a little trademark R next to it. So this isn't like some industry accepted practice. This is something they came up with, but I think it's really fascinating. The spider graph goes through things like persistency and spicy, like things that make sense, like spicy and toasted and vanilla. Others are a little more nebulous. Like we've got oak perception on nose, fruit on nose, oak integration. Like I don't know who Penelope is sitting down. It's probably Danny if I had to guess, like sitting down to figure out whether this is a 2.5 or 3.5 on oak integration. But it's a new way of looking at whiskey that I haven't seen before, and I kind of want to gather up the rest of these just to see how now we have on paper how they compare and on the palate as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will most certainly look forward to comparing future builds to this one.
Right. It feels weird to say builds for whiskey. Like you and I build computers all day. So like, oh, we got a new build. Like I built a new camera rig, or I built a new computer. Be like, oh, we built a new bourbon. But I guess it works.
I don't hate it, man. I'll tell you that much.